So in our second video on Indian independence, we not only look at the official process of India becoming its own country, but also the partition that takes place and the struggles associated with that. So beginning in the 1920s, the British slowly began to give in to the dual pressure of the Muslim League and the Indian National Congress. National areas of interest like education, the economy, and public works were handed back to the Indians. They also succeeded in getting more native Indians admitted into the civil service and officer corps. Steps towards industrialization also occurred when Indian politicians were allowed to enact tariffs that would protect the young Indian industries from foreign competition, even British competition. Indian businessmen went to work building factories for iron and steel, and in addition to that, cement, sugar, and other goods. It didn't really improve the lives of mass numbers of peasants or the urban poor, but it did create a class of wealthy businessmen who intensified the pressure for independence. Nehru emerged as the successor to Gandhi in the INC, and he really looked forward to an industrialized India. Indians were understandably upset when the Viceroy declared war without consulting a single Indian, and although 2 million soldiers and abundant resources contributed to the war effort, most felt that they were defending India, not exactly the British. The British promised freedom after the war, but Gandhi called it a post-dated check on a failing bank. The resulting Quit India movement led to massive demonstrations and a wave of arrests. The requisitioning of the railroads to transport troops and equipment, and the Japanese conquest of Burma cut off supplies of Burmese rice to Bengal. 2 million starved to death, which is certainly too many, before the army was ordered to provide food. All right, now the newly elected British Labour Party prepared for Indian independence immediately following World War II. The process became more complicated when the INC won in several regional elections and refused to share power with the Muslim League. Talks between Nehru and Muslim League leader Muhammad Ali Jinnah broke down, and Jinnah used this as an opportunity to push for what Muslims had dreamed of for years, their own state, known as Pakistan. Punjab, Afghans, Kashmir, Sindh. That's what Pakistan really is. Punjab, Afghans, Kashmir, Sindh, plus the Persian suffix stan, meaning kingdom. Violent rioting between Muslims and Hindus broke out in Bengal and Bihar, and Gandhi's appeals for tolerance and nonviolence fell on deaf ears. The British tried to keep the peace and made calls for Indian unity, but unfortunately the metaphorical train was leaving the station. Now, the INC began to accept the concept of 2 Indian states by early 1947. One would be a secular state with a Hindu majority, as Nehru dreamed of, and the other would be Muslim, like Jinnah wanted. On August 15th, the last viceroy decided on independence, and British India gave way to India and Pakistan. In both regions, Hindu and Muslim neighbors turned on one another and attacked each other. The two sides had intermingled for centuries, but now Hindus fled Muslim areas and vice versa, often leaving all of their possessions behind. Accounts of trainloads of refugees of one faith being attacked or being left stranded in the middle of the desert were common. In only a few months, 12 million people had abandoned their ancestral homes, and 500,000 were dead. And worst of all, Gandhi himself was gunned down by a Hindu refugee in 1948. So the man who spearheaded this movement and tied it together was now gone. Now, of course, the struggles and the difficulties continue. The Kashmir region epitomizes the struggles faced by each side. Kashmir is the only region in India where Muslims are the majority. And due to the partition, it did remain in India because the ruling prince was Hindu. And it contained the headwaters of several rivers that irrigate millions of acres of farmland in the northwest, so this certainly helped. locals were not allowed to vote on the matter. If they could have, they probably would have voted to become part of Pakistan. The violence continued and led to several wars between India and Pakistan. Nehru tried to keep his country non-aligned by purchasing military equipment from America and the Soviet Union. But Pakistan raised concerns when they entered into a formal defense agreement with the United States in 1958. The US was really concerned with India's ties to the Soviet Union and wanted an anti-communist ally in the region. So the violence, the struggle will continue and does continue.